Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to present my critical reflection on Unit ECE508 that focuses on leadership, ethics, and advocacy. So, we are going to delve deeper and discuss at length about what had been our journey throughout this unit. So, we'll talk about the challenges, successes, and the lessons we have learned. I would also discuss about my future professional growth. And I would also demonstrate my deeper understanding of leadership that I've attained after the completion of this unit, the importance of communication, collaboration, governance, and advocacy. Um, and throughout this journey, one thing that had been really important is reflective practices that we have done almost every week. So, we'll talk about how important reflective practices are in early childhood setups. So, before this unit, my understanding of leadership was very different. When we talk of leader, the one thing that came to my mind was being a director of an early childhood setting or a manager to an early childhood setting. You know, I've also had a very narrowed and confined outlook to considering what leadership is. I thought that leadership mostly involved supervising staff, managing policies, and making decisions for the services, which is not true. And I also did not fully understand that how educators can demonstrate their leadership. I thought like it is just the duty of the director or the manager, not the educator. So how they can demonstrate their leadership acumen through teamwork, through communication, through advocacy, and reflective practices, of course. So, leadership in early childhood education is basically relational, collaborative, and it is based on values. And that's very important to pay attention on. So, if I talk about my week 1 and week 2, these 2 weeks have made me clear one thing that leadership is a shared responsibility. Educators can contribute effectively, not only the managers of the early childhood setup, they educators even have an equal contribution. They can support colleagues and they can work as a team. That's a sign of a good leader. So week 3 and week 4, that focuses on the teamwork and its importance. And it also highlights that the teamwork requires effective collaboration, communication, planning, trust, and leadership support. Now we'll talk about how this unit has changed my perspective and my understanding to communication and relationships. So, week 6 specifically taught me that respectful communication, being active listener, and positive interactions actually help us build a very good rapport and relationship with the children, and not only with the children, but with their families and the colleagues we're working with. And there's one element of EYLF version 2.0 that again focuses on communication and relationship. It highlights the importance of reflective and responsive relationships in supporting children's learning and well-being. So moving further, we'll talk a little bit about observation, reflection, and pedagogical leadership. So pedagogical leadership was quite an interesting aspect for me to read and to discuss in the class. Now, week 3 and week 6 were actually highlighting the importance of observations, reflections, and pedagogical leadership. We observe children carefully and plan meaningful learning experiences is what we've discussed in the class. There were so many interesting experiences that were shared by our peers in class discussion that I would remember. Even some of the ideas I have already adopted and I've tried practicing those ideas in my, at my workplace where I'm working. So, and we also discussed about pedagogical leadership that is not about control or authority. Instead, it involves mentoring, collaboration, ethical decision making, and creating positive learning environments. Now, let's talk about governance, change, and advocacy that was highlighted through our unit. Reading resources also. There were some videos shared by the lecturers, and in fact, in the class, we have discussed the same. So, week 7 was all about it, where we talked about ethical leadership transparency in our practices, and accountability. That's quite an important element in early childhood setups. And week eight had, it has drawn the curtain off from a very interesting, change model. That was John Cotter's eight-step change model. And week nine actually highlighted the importance of speaking up for children's right and support positive changes. So week nine was quite nostalgic, not only because of the class practices or the early childhood aspects that we've discussed, but we had heart-to-heart discussion where children were set free to share their experiences. And there were a lot of interesting experiences children have shared. Our teachers have highlighted, they have given live examples of how children's rights matter, and that was quite interesting to hear. Now we'll talk about the lessons that I have personally learned, you know. So I've learned that leadership can be shared. It is not the responsibility of the one person. It's not like only the director of the center or maybe the manager of the center is responsible because he's a leader. Leadership is a shared responsibility, and everybody, including the educators or the educators, should contribute in it, and they have all the acumen to contribute. Now, the next thing that I have adopted and I would definitely practice is communication. Communication is very important. We should have a very effective communication that basically bridges the gap between the families, between the communities, between the colleagues. And it is a very interesting element, but usually underrated. So we need to definitely work on it. Clear communication. And one more thing, clear communication, is not about using fancy words and all. It is all about clarity in our speech. And we are doing it as and when required. So without a delay, all these things are the part of communication. It's not just, using fancy words or fancy language. And I've also understood that teamwork requires a lot of efforts. Teamwork is not easy, and it's not something that goes smooth at one go and all that stuff. There are some challenges that will always be there, but collaborative efforts and mutual understanding can definitely help us work as a team. Apart from this, we've also discussed about how advocacy matters, and we also have understood reflective practices and their importance in our professional journey. So if we really want to get a professional growth, we need to definitely do some reflective practices when we start working. Like I'm working, so I do reflective practices every now and then. I've made my schedule of at least a fortnight of reflective practices. I choose different kids, and it's really important that we do it. We do reflective practices on the kids, and we do reflective practices overall on the centers. Their thought process, their philosophies, and the way they operate. So that has given me quite a widened view to what could be better. Now, if we talk about future professional growth, so the future professional growth, specifically if I talk about my personal reflection on that, I will definitely strengthen my reflective practices even more, as I've just highlighted the importance of reflective practices. I would definitely try to improve my confidence in difficult situations. There had been many difficult situations where I felt like, oh, I need help of a senior. So I will definitely work even more on being confident onto what all possible problems could occur. Apart from this, I would definitely support inclusive practices. I would advocate for children's rights very mindfully. And I would definitely become a supportive educator and a supportive leader. So to conclude, I would like to give a before and after overview, right? So before the unit, I, viewed leadership mainly as authority and management. I thought like leadership, oh, that's not an educator's job. Leadership is all about authority and it is all about management. But after the unit, after the readings I've, done or A lot of interesting videos, those were shared and uploaded on the on our portal. My viewpoint to leadership has changed completely. So leadership is a collaborative, relational, ethical, and focused. Basically, it is focused on supporting children, families, educators, and communities. So it is not the job of a one person. And weekly reflections, workshops, readings that were suggested by our lecturers, and discussions developed a deeper understanding of communication, teamwork, governance, advocacy, and reflective practices in me. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you so much. And this unit has definitely helped me understand leadership thoroughly.